Welcome everyone to this week's Webinar Wednesday, and we have Alistair back from his holidays.
Indeed, many exotic travels. I wish.
Yes, you haven't left that shed, I don't think, for the last.
I haven't even left the computer. That's worryingly, but there we go.
Oh well, okay. So anyway, welcome everyone to this week's Webinar Wednesday. As usual, we'll be here for about 45 to 50 minutes. Online on In Control Scotland Facebook, YouTube channel, and also broadcasting through Citizen Network TV. So wherever you're watching, welcome. And good morning to our lovely viewers. Yeah, excellent. And this week's guest joining us about 11:10 will be Sam Sly.
Yep, indeed.
Yep. And you want to just tell us about Sam and what Sam's going to talk about without stealing any of our thunder, of course.
No spoilers. No spoilers. Yeah. So Sam's involved with Enough is Enough, and I'm out of here. And obviously, I like a major campaigner for people's rights, and has been an In Control associate, Scotland associate as well. And a couple of things we're going to chat about is she was asking a question before about how people are included in staff selection when, maybe there's issues about communication and stuff. Just really looking at maximising that inclusion, and we'll just maybe share a few of our stories and some examples of how we can do that to give people confidence. And then we're also going to have a bit of a chat about the whole vaccinations and COVID research and all that kind of stuff that's going on in relation to people with disabilities. So okay. So it could be a good discussion.
So that sounds interesting, but enough is enough for now, Alistair. I'm out. No, I'm not out of here. No, I'm not out of here. No. But yeah, okay. So how has your week been? You're coming back from a little bit of time away.
A little bit of time away. Yes, I did manage to get one mountain bike just up in the forest, just within Aberdeen City, and that was good just to get out the house for somewhere slightly different. So coming back, it's been catching up with folks in Shetland, doing a bit of planning around about next steps there, and a little bit more round about our rights and equalities work with young people. Just try to take that forward on an online basis. Had a review meeting with one of the people who've been involved with for that, and so it's quite back into all of this. So lots of really exciting, interesting work, and just really hoping that we can start getting a bit more in person shortly, because that would be excellent.
No, I know. And also of course this week what we've had are the first shoots of spring almost, haven't we? We have some days, 2 days, I think. We've had 2 days where if you manage to get outside, you can actually feel very, very slightly the slight kiss of sunshine on you, which is always great to feel. So
vitamin D, bring on that vitamin D. We need it in Scotland.
You definitely do, and crocus is coming up, and wee flowers. So that's for me. I really like that, because when you get out and that starts to happen, that brings you a little bit of spring in your step and hope about looking forward for those warmer days ahead. So let's hope that's a metaphor as well.
You're getting all lyrical now. You see the first kiss of sunshine.
I'm going to burst into song in a minute, but anyway, thanks. I've also been involved in a number of workshops around individual service funds over the last week. Really, we're doing a bit of work with City of Edinburgh Council, thinking about option 2 and individual service funds, and how more people can have a real choice around option 2 of self-directed support. So that's been really interesting, because we're looking at different we're now in subgroups and looking at different topics. So tomorrow's is about contract systems and finance. Yesterday's was about communication and sharing stories, and last week's was about developing practice and trying to test out that a bit more with people where things aren't maybe quite working as well as they might like to. So, yeah.
And that's really important work, isn't it? Because that coordination of everybody being on the same page within different departments and really getting this and having confidence, it makes such a difference, doesn't it? When you get that. But it can take so long sometimes for everybody to get in the same page because everybody's got different priorities and things to focus on. So freeing people up to get engaged in that conversation is so valuable.
Yeah, it does. The good thing is it feels like there's quite a few people working together on that. So not necessarily the same people on each of those strands either. So it's that's quite interesting. So let's see where that takes us and what that brings and the steps that we can take. I'm also just this week been. That's good. That's right. Yeah. I've also just this week been thinking about a couple of our next lunchtime sessions for people thinking about self-directed sport for children, young people and families. So we're going to do a couple of those at the end of March. We did them in September over 4 days. We're just going to do 2 in March this year. So we're going to do one on the 24th and one on the 25th as lunchtime sessions, 12 to 1:30. So with some topics, some presentation, and hopefully lots of opportunity for discussion for people who are interested in that area. So
I found that to be quite an accessible time because it's a lunchtime slot, hasn't it? It's been quite popular in the past.
Yeah, I think it has, isn't it? Because we've done other things on using that same sort of idea, haven't we? We did some of the accessible, the accessible media stuff, didn't we? About
So that's good. We've got National Voices coming up not too long time as well. We're going to be along to that, aren't we?
Yeah, the National Voice. Yeah, so that if anybody doesn't know what the National Voice is, it's the Self-Directed Sports Scotland conference that they've done for at least the last 3 years in round about this time, mid-March. And I think I have mentioned previously that last year's National Voice, which was in Glasgow, it's moved around when it's been a physical conference. Some people have been saying, well, that's the last time I actually went out to go to an actual event because it was the week before lockdown started. I do remember thinking last year, I wonder if this is going to go ahead because we were just we were just hearing more and more about more cases of this strange COVID-19. And I do remember thinking, I wonder if it'll go ahead, and it did go ahead, and it was fine. But it was literally just the week before lockdown. So,
do you remember the last thing I nearly went to?
What was that?
That was we were having a. I was coming down. I was literally on the train.
Oh yeah.
Coming down to a preparation session we're going to do for Citizen Fest.
Yeah.
And you were like, you have got the message half an hour ago that it's cancelled. I was literally throwing my stuff off the train. So I didn't.
Yeah, that's right. You're sitting on the train.
That was a definite message. Please allow more than 2 hours cancellation time before.
No, that was going to be 6 months. It was going to be practically exactly 6 months before Citizen Fest was due to start. We were doing that launch event, which was sort of going to showcase a couple of things, and and then we pulled the plug on that, and then didn't meet again in person since.
No.
Although we did have a successful Citizen Fest in September last year, and that was very interesting, and plans for another one this year. So
and we're gonna be talking at National Voice a bit about New Roots Home, that kind of campaign that we're developing alongside lots of other people. And again, we could probably talk a bit about that when Sam's on, because I know she's interested in a lot of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Shall we just get her on?
Yeah.
Hi, Sam.
Hello. Nice to see you both. Yeah, just memories of Citizen Fest, but because I went to the first one.
Oh yeah.
And it was brilliant, and we were all really looking forward to that last year. So it all happening all over again.
Yeah.
But there we are. Next year now. Next year.
But we have managed to get involved in lots of collaborative stuff with folk all around the world as well. So there's been these other sides to it. The folk in,
absolutely, and that probably
Europe,
wouldn't have
America,
happened.
and India and Africa. So there has been some things that's been pretty dire, but there've been some bits where we've actually managed to a lot better, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, particularly No Labels, No Walls. We've been doing, we linked Citizen Fest this year, last year actually, with No Labels, No Walls.
Yeah,
and that's a very interesting meeting, that one, when we go to that.
Yeah. Good.
So a warm welcome to Sam. Sam, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit about Enough is Enough, and I'm out of here and that kind of stuff? You're challenging behaviour, I am challenging behaviour, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I've been working with autistic people and people with learning disabilities now for about over 30 years, I reckon. Started off as a support worker, but the work I do at the moment, so I work for myself, and those are 2 companies that I've set up, and the work that I mainly do with people at the moment is planning with them to either move out of institutions, so residential homes, and mainly out of specialist hospitals. So I work a lot with people who are stuck in these horrible old hospitals, and the way I do that is through planning with them on a person-centred basis, believe it or not. So that's what I do most of the time. And I get involved in all sorts of stuff if I can. So the Challenge Your Behaviour campaign we set up, and that was through social media as well. So it is an amazing thing when it works properly. But it was because we were all fed up with all the stupid words that people use, that they only seem to ever use with people with learning disabilities and autistic people and nobody else. So it's only in service land that these horrible things are used. So it was a campaign really just to highlight and to give people a bit of a boost in being able to challenge things. And that's where we kind of just flip the words. So instead of it being used to label people, we've said that we should be challenging the behaviour of the people that label people and block them having good lives, really. But it took off, and I think feedback from a lot of families and people themselves was that it felt like they were part of a campaign and part of something which helped kind of do stuff. So yes, and the planning stuff, which I absolutely love and enjoy. It actually, is based on the stuff that you all started up in Scotland anyway. So it's no different than that. And of course, I did a lot of it when working with Doreen Kelly a long time ago, but I've kind of changed it slightly. So we're doing it more based on being able to put together information so that people can give it to their commissioners and get them to pay for the right stuff for them rather than the stuff that they come up with instead. So yes, so that's what I occupy my time with. And I also down here, because I'm based in Exeter.
Sam, sorry, just tell us a bit about how you do that online as well, and because obviously
yes, exactly. Yes, so like everybody else, we had to change very quickly at the beginning of last year because we hadn't been using, online planning at all. And I think we'd always felt it was better to go and meet everybody and get everybody together in a room to do this planning, and it does work really, really well like that. So I think for a few months we even thought we weren't going to do it at all until we were able to do that again, because we just didn't think it would work. But weirdly and amazingly and in a positive way, it's actually worked really well. And I think, and especially for people who, understandably don't like being with lots of other people. So some of the people I work with who'd rather not, sit or be with other people, this has been a medium that's really worked well. So, I've planned with people that want their camera turned off, but they can see all of us, but we can't see them. And I've had people that have come along to this who wouldn't have come for all the time if we were doing it in a room. So it's worked brilliantly. And of course, the other thing we've been able to do, which we weren't before, was I do this all over the country. So you have to travel there, you have to stay overnight, all those kind of things. And of course, you can't move it very much then. Do you know what I mean? And everybody has to get there at the same time. Whereas this way, we can do smaller sessions with people, which seems to work really well. So instead of one day, we might have 3 sessions of a few hours to do it all. We still need everybody there, so it's not one, that's part of what makes it work, is having everybody together at the same time, so that if people don't agree with each other about things, we can have discussions about that and come to compromises, rather than people going off and just saying, well, I don't agree, and it never happening, sort of thing. So actually it's worked really, really well. And of course you can put stuff on the screen, and you can feedback what we talked about at the last session, and people have had time to think about stuff in between. So yeah, it's worked really well. So
yeah, it's interesting that, because I've done a couple of plans online as well, and I was initially a little bit skeptical about how we could get that same feel, but absolutely, I did one ILF plan for a young woman who had a lot of stuff going on, and because I was able to do 3 very short introductory sessions with her over a couple of weeks. She was, she was in the room for me, but when we actually did the session, whereas before that was an incredible ask of her.
Absolutely.
Completely cold called. You're in a room for the guts of a day, asking some really deep questions.
I know, that's right. I think the only thing that you still really miss, well, there's 3 things. First of all, it's not the same meeting somebody online, do you know what I mean? And actually just that being, and you pick up stuff from that's one of them. The other bit is that you can't, part of what we, was what was good about it, was the person had choice about where to do their planning. So we would go to a pub, or we'd go, somewhere they felt comfortable. And of course you can't do that with it. And then the other bit is that, when I start planning, we always do the person's life so far. So we talk about that kind of stuff. And actually some of that can be quite distressing for people. And actually being with them when you've got tissues and you've got cake and all that kind of stuff, that stuff's missing as well. So, there's some bits that are good, and there's some bits that, I'd rather we went back a bit to the other way. But
and that's what we're recognising. A lot of what we do generally is we're making the best of it, and there are some stuff that we'll definitely learn, but it's not always a complete substitute for
So the big question is, have you had less cake or more cake?
No, well, I think sadly blimmin' less. Do you know what I mean? That's the best bit. I used to love going and, do you know what I mean, finding out what they wanted, or we'd have a meal. We've done all sorts of things. Got a takeaway together and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And you don't get that bit, but there we are. At the end of the day, the whole point is to get them a plan so they can get out of these places. So hopefully.
Yeah. So who's asking you to do that at the moment, Sam? I don't just mean. I just mean, are people, obviously some people themselves are asking you to do that, but are local councils asking you to do that as well on their behalf? And
mainly, we, as you know, our self-directed support down here isn't the same as yours. We have no legal requirement to do it, and they take full advantage of that, as in the people with the money. Do you know what I mean? So the majority of people we get asked to do them by. So we'll have families who have heard about them, or people that have heard about them and pester their social worker or whomever to do it. But the majority of people that commission us to do it are the clinical commissioning groups, so the health people and social services, and NHS England, which is is in charge at the moment of the people who are in more secure hospitals. So families you know, I don't see why they should have to pay for having a plan anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because they've got people that should be doing that work for them. So I always advise them to go and get their social worker or their, you know, care coordinator or whomever to get it sorted. But yeah, we're getting more and more people asking about them now, which is brilliant. So yeah, it's getting there. It's taken a while, but getting there in the end. Yes.
Yeah. So, sorry, I was going to say, I asked you a question as you were telling us something else, and I'm not sure what else you were going to tell us.
We were going to talk about getting your staff and that bit of it all, which is a key part. So it might be, I mean, each planning day is very different anyway, as I'm sure it is for all of you, but there are certain things that you have to cover, and everybody is, if they need help to carry on with their lives or wherever they're going to go. And I guess, you know, so one of those areas is help, basically, and that's what we talk about alongside their housing as well. And some of that is related because some people live in some types of housing where they share things. So, you know, I basically ask around where they want to live first, so we can get an idea about whether they want to be on their own or whether they'd rather live near other people. I mean, I think in all the years I've ever done this, where you really do planning with somebody, no, that's not true. There's probably been 2 or 3 people. So I've probably done about 200 of these now, I reckon. And 2 or 3 people out of that have absolutely categorically wanted to go and live in a residential care home, okay? And they've all had really justified reasons. But out of that number, that's not many, is it? Who actually choose to go and live with other people. And the guys that have chosen, again, were very specific about it. And that was because they'd had lives up to now where that was what they felt comfortable with and had always had, and they didn't want to change. But for most other people, I'm not saying this is what professionals think they want, but when you ask people and their families what they want, more often than not, they want to either live on their own with help or with a friend, or, do you know what I mean, somebody that they already know. So it's quite unusual not to. But anyway, so getting back to the help that people need. So, and again, we don't approach it from the fact that all of it's got to be paid help, because none of us have all paid help in our lives, do we? We rely on our friends or our family, as well as you know, getting paid help if we need. So we do explore that side of it all as well. But I think, you know, it still makes me angry, I suppose, really, that I'm still doing this in, what are we now, 2021, and we still have to question about people being able to be involved and pick the people that are going to help them in their lives, who they're paying for, do you know what I mean, or their money's paying for. But it still comes as a shock in, you know, 4 out of 5 of the meetings that we have, that actually, you know, we're going to say that somebody or suggest to somebody in their family that they might actually want to be involved.
Have a choice. I know. Yeah. It's interesting, because if you look at the kind of the comparisons with COVID, you know, when we feel like it's Groundhog Day and we're just, you know, it's another lockdown, we keep doing the same thing. I've often said to Keith, you know, if back in the day, 30 odd years ago, when I first started, you know, closing hospitals in Ladies Bridge and things like that, if I'd have known that at this point in time we'd still be arguing about some of the same points,
absolutely,
would I have believed it, and would I still keep this momentum? I hope I would. But
I think you would, Alistair. Honestly, you would, because
I just think, but it's just bloody mindedness. I think a lot of the time you just refuse it. But I just think that it's madness that we know it works. We know we can prove it. and yet still
I know, yeah.
Things haven't shifted. The power hasn't shifted. In
No,
so many
not at all. Yeah, but it's, it's more fundamental than that, isn't it? It's also the disbelief that people are disregarded in that it's actually a right of theirs, and that, do you know what I mean? It's still the othering bit, isn't it? And that, I love the word service land, because to me that is just such a good word to describe where we make people live. Do you know what I mean? Because it is a different land from the land that all the rest of us live in. Do you know what I mean? And things are different there, and nobody seems to think there's anything wrong with that, to be quite honest. And then us professionals step out of it when we get home and take off our working hats, and are in a different world completely, where we'd never accept the stuff that we do. But so
Sam, you know that Tim Keelty always talks about his service land goggles, doesn't he? Yeah,
he does.
A good
Absolutely, and it is. Yeah, service land goggles, exactly what it is. And you put them on before you go to work, and then you take them off again when you're back with your family in your own kind of little world. Yeah. So one of
what we should do as well. We should do a session on what's the worst bit of advice you've ever been given.
That's very true.
I once had a manager say to me that why do you get so bothered about this? He says, you get paid whether this stuff happens or not.
Oh,
and I literally
no.
just
But yeah,
anyway,
but I think as you were saying, it's a bit about sticking with it. I mean, I think again, after 30 years, we have still got the same passion, but I think you start questioning other things, which are about, well, if we're trying so hard to change things and it still isn't changing, that's the bit that gets me after doing it for so long. Do you know what I mean? Is what the hell do we need to do then? Do you know what I mean? You kind of start worrying.
We have got in Scotland, we've just had released this independent social care review, and Derek Feely, who's done that, there's some quite bold statements in that.
Oh, good.
One of the things in there is he said it shouldn't have to be a fight. He's recognised families, and that's one of the things that keeps coming up over and over. So it's quite bold that it's not been glossed over. So I mean, it's not the first time we've had really good, reviews. Maybe don't always get put in. But if that gets taken forward in the it's been written, it'll be another positive step, hopefully.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it does also, because it is, I mean, I agree with Alistair that the independent review of adult social care is a really good document. It's got very clear and specific recommendations. There's lots of them. For example, the end of all charging policies as well as one of them. So if we go down that route in Scotland, it does differentiate us even more from in England, doesn't it? Which is really interesting.
I can just see the wall going up. Yes. So going back to picking your help then. So I take people through a kind of process of enlightening them when the poor people have never been allowed to be involved, but really also about thinking about how you get involved, but also what's important when you're picking people to work with you, because it is up to the person themselves to do that. And so I think one of the things that services again are very keen on is things like training and, do you know what I mean, and qualifications and all that stuff, and experience. That's the word, experience. All right, so what I start from a very different perspective on all of this, which is actually that if you've got somebody coming in to work with you for sometimes 8 to 12 to 24 hours a day, then you've got to get on with them. So it doesn't matter how much training or how much experience they've got of working with other people. You want people with you in your life who you get on with. So we always start when what we do in a life plan is kind of write out a person specification and a kind of specification for what you'll want your people to do with you when they come and work with them. I often ask people to go away and have a think about any rules that they've got about people coming in their house, because again, they never get asked about things like that. But I mean, I'd blimmin' hate it if somebody came into my house, started making themselves a cup of tea without being asked, or put all their sandwiches in my fridge and stuff like that. So, you know, it's the thing about trying to shift people's ideas of what they can expect and what they have rights to. But like I say, first of all, I think the most important bit is that you think about the kinds of people that you've got on well with. So we usually do it like that. So who have you got on well with in the past, and what was it about them? Because then you can put that into your job advert or whatever it is. But also
getting everything to fit, isn't it? Because
absolutely.
I did a bit of work with Dream Control Scotland a few years back. With the children's services, and it was matching up HR and practice, because HR were very process driven a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
They would decide what the advert said, because it was a standard advert, and it would go out with this closing date, and there was, you know, they'd specified how the recruitment was going to go on, and some of that stuff really impacted on some of those questions that you've and over a period of time working together on that, you could see the pennies dropping and the light bulbs going on, and going, oh, so when I do this for me, it absolutely, you know, goes against all of this stuff for you. And we did a lot of that work, and it was really great to see that, because you could see that at least until the personnel change, which is always the problem.
That's right.
That cultural shift was going to be there, and people were going to start letting go of that anxiety that the process was the most important thing.
And it's bigger organisations that often have, you know, harder problems with it, because they've got, you know, HR departments that have got processes and do you know what I mean, that are much less able to be moved really around stuff. But so, and again, you know, it's harder if people are going to share staff. So there are some, as I was saying, some living options that people might choose, but what they sometimes don't understand is that by choosing that option of living with other people, and I'm talking about the places that are called supported living, which again, I hate that bloody word, but there we are. But actually what you're buying into there is that you're not just sharing your house, but you're probably sharing staff that you might not have as much ability to pick who they are, and they might not always come in to work with you, which for some people, of course, is really difficult, understandably, because you make relationships with people. So, you know, in the discussions we have, we at least put that into people's heads so that they understand that, you know, choosing different places to live has different connotations for people, I suppose. But so, and we also ask, you know, try and think about what people they haven't got on well with as well, because, you know, for all of us, we could quite easily come up with a list, couldn't we, of the things that annoy us the most about people. And again, you know, you can put up with somebody for an hour, but not if they're there doing everything with you for 8 hours. You know, you can see why people get frustrated or lock themselves away. Do you know what I mean? Because they just don't want to be with the blooming people that are in there. So we always start with that, because I think the other thing I absolutely believe is that you can train people in whatever you need to train them with, and whatever the person's needs are, you know, that's specific to them, that staff need to know about. You can go and get that training, but you can't change who somebody is. And so, you know, that's the kind of most important bit. And then we also have a think about, you know, how they want to be involved in recruitment. So again, you know, there's lots of bits to recruit, but it's not just an interview, is it? You know, and lots of people, of course, that I've work with have never been involved in any of it. So it's like they think they should say yes or no to the whole thing, and they're scared as well because they've never done it. So you know, but you've got to put together an advert. And again, the lovely thing about life plans is that you can get all the information you need for an advert, because you've got all the things they like doing, the things they're good at, you know, how they want to spend their day. With this service, with the person spec, you can put in the bits about the person that you need. And I know from when I was a provider myself, when we had people come, saw an advert, they loved them because they could see themselves working with that person. And that's different from, you know, an advert that says come and work for Kingsway Support Services or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And you've got no,
we managed to. I managed to develop a technique that I used in a lot of my interviews. It just happened. It was something that happened by chance. I was just away to start an interview, and I got an emergency call, and nobody else was able to deal with it. And I just said, "Oh, this is so and so. They'll be part of your interview today. I'm just going to take a call, and we'll get started in a minute." And because it was a flimsy plastic perspex sort of divider door, I could do everything. So while I'm on the phone sorting this other stuff out, I could hear if it was either stilted or if it was actually, working. And what we worked out was that person, there was a marked difference between how that person behaved when they were just having a chat and then turning it on for the interview, And so some people who were really poor in an interview setting but were really good, just chatting, and vice versa. One person just sat and read a magazine and ignored the guy, and then when he was like, "Well, I would do this and I would do that," and it was so a really great leveler.
Absolutely.
I didn't say that. Anyway, that was just one of the things.
Definitely.
One of the reasons that folks say is that if people don't have the verbal skills to comment or things like that what's the point? But that's not the case at all either, is it?
Not at all. I mean, absolutely, totally. No, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's. I don't know. I suppose I can just never get my head around the fact that this is one of the most important things that's going to happen to this person, because these people are the people that are going to help them access all that stuff that's out there, So you've got to get it right, and you've got to do as much as you can. I mean, I think the other thing that I always talk to them about as well is that it doesn't stop when they've been employed. So people should be involved in reviewing how it goes, the probation side of it. So the bit when somebody starts is really important that, that they're, because I think sometimes people think they've got a job and that's it then. Nobody's, do you know what I mean? But actually, the family and the person should be reviewing them and having an input through that first period and be able to say yes or no at the end of it to them carrying on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and because too often people find that when they're talking with a manager and staff, that it's them that's being judged. It's like, what skills do I need to learn? What am I doing, and things like that. And I made when I first supported people in their own flats in the community way back when, after I was involved in folk moving out of hospital, the first thing I did was I stopped the workers coming to me and being, doing their supervisions with me on their own. I made every second session with the person in the house, and it was like, tell me what you like or what we need to do differently about supporting you, so that the power balance it wasn't, oh, I'm being judged here. It was like, us all commenting, and it really made a powerful difference to how everybody felt about that relationship. And I think maybe we could work something up into more formal description of some of these things, because I think we could probably
definitely.
I'm just reflecting on the most important thing, obviously, for anyone who's getting supported, is that they get on with the person. They can enjoy being supported in their life, because that's what it is. It's their life.
Definitely.
So it is just that about how do we get it's about getting the right fit between people, isn't it? And I 100% agree with that stuff about training, because I think you can.
Exactly, but the amount of people that I meet who, I've just finished it. I'm doing one this afternoon, finishing off, and we're doing the housing support bit this afternoon. But I already know. I mean, he's somebody who played really high level football and sport and stuff like that. I mean, he's been in hospital for a long time now, so he hasn't been able to do those kind of things for a long time. But you don't look at where somebody is in hospital, because they haven't. Do you know what I mean? They've lost everything basically. But there's no way he's going to need staff who aren't fit and healthy, and do you know what I mean, going to be able to go running with him and things like that. Having somebody who doesn't like those things is absolute. You just can't do it. It would, ruin his life, wouldn't it? And it's the same with, things like being a driver. If somebody can't get about and can't use the bus, they need to have a car, and there's no point having people on the team that can't drive. So, it's just little things like that.
Interestingly, I was just made aware that a local fairly decent sized support organisation has I'm not sure how long ago it's been, but they've decided that no staff are going to use their cars with anybody to support. And I thought, you know what I mean? I'm not sure that's the best plan in the world. As a blanket, just we'll make it nice and easy. Nobody will do it.
No, So all those things, are so important. I mean, we'd all be blimmin' frustrated, wouldn't we, if we had people with us that, well, even if they, don't want to talk to you about some things, or even if they support different football teams, is bad enough for some people. Do you know what I mean?
Nobody mentioned the war, isn't it?
Exactly.
And that's it. Some people get panicky about the stuff. Oh well, it's much easier to justify it on this grounds. And people get a bit iffy about it, but it is that, and say, oh, what about boundaries? And I think there are important things to work out about boundaries and appropriate, but it's that natural, that sense of you're not just here to fill your day and to get some money. You actually enjoy and reconnect, and there's genuine, and that's so good when you see it happening.
Yeah, no, it is definitely. So those are the kind of things, really. And the other bit, of course, is, again, and it always amuses me when you put the question out there. So what are these people going to be doing? And especially when because we've got people that are coming out of hospitals, they're often seen as dangerous and all that kind of stuff. And so, people are talking about them having 2 people with them at all times, or 3, or stupid numbers of people. So you have to then have the discussions about, or I just ask, well, what are they there for then? Do you know what I mean? If there's going to be 2 people there, what's their role? Which kind of
right. I think we're going to have you back to talk about because genuinely this is something I've done a lot on, and we've done that, our sort of like risking a real life stuff round about some of that stuff, and there's a lot more to deal in with it than we've got time for today. But absolutely, some of those things where it's just control, and squashing blocks, and
absolutely
right. Before we finish up, just a couple of other things. Just because there were things that people have asked about, was people were talking about this DNR, this Do Not Resuscitate notice, which is being talked about again in relation to people with learning disabilities. This is an article from last week in The Guardian, and
when was that? Was it? You said last week in The Guardian? Yeah.
So this was last week. This one, this was last Saturday, and then that. So again, the issue was that was a national one. And I just wanted to indicate as well that there's in terms of a Scottish perspective, there is a letter which is on the Scottish Government website, which I'll just bring up just now, which says, and I've highlighted this bit in yellow.
Yeah.
Just to provide absolute clarity, a stable long-term physical need, learning disabilities or autism should never be a reason for issuing or encouraging the use of a DNA CPR order. So that's a do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation order. Social care needs, health conditions, or disabilities that are unrelated to a person's chance of benefiting from treatment must not be part of a clinician's decision-making regarding access and treatment. So, I mean, just to kind of, hopefully to reassure people in Scotland, at least that's pretty clear, you know. I haven't heard of any recent issues in terms of Scotland where people are saying that, but obviously it's still an issue nationally, and we need to make sure that respect in people's lives. Obviously, Jo Whiley's been on talking about her situation with her sister. Yeah, and just it's terrifying, isn't it?
It is, definitely, absolutely, and it just feels as if unless people are on it all the time, super vigilant, it just creeps back in again, doesn't it? Which goes back to the whole thing about people not being seen as humans at the end of the day.
We also got clarity about vaccination as well, didn't we? Yes. Recently, which is about all carers, even if they may not have a form or can't talk to their GP about getting their vaccination. Now in what is tier 6, and any person with a learning disability, even if it's deemed to be mild and moderate, can get the vaccination in Scotland. I'm not sure, is it the same in England as well?
Yeah, no, it's the same, I think the only bit that, and this is just my view on it, was that people have to actively sort it out themselves, do you know what I mean? And that's it's all very well if you can, isn't it? But for some people that's quite difficult. So it should, you know, they need to do a little bit more about making sure people are contacted and are set up rather than leaving it for them to do it.
We just got a what's Jo Whiley's situation with her sister? So that was, I haven't heard an update.
I think, well, there was a post on Twitter, I think it was last night, which was, and it was her sister waving, but I couldn't work out whether that was a previous. But anyway, basically that it was about a positive, that she's getting a lot better. Thank goodness. So that's good.
But the issue, Dan, just to be clear, was that Jo had been offered a vaccination where her sister, who had underlying health conditions, 2 years younger than her and lived in a residential home, hadn't been. And by the time she got offered it, she already had COVID, and she's now hopefully recovering from it. It could have gone the other way, and it was just an example of that.
Terrible.
So we are at 11:48, and I'm sure there's loads more things we could talk about, but we probably should give you an opportunity to make some final comments, Sam.
About anything in particular?
Anything you want. Look, I'm just giving you the opportunity to say whatever you want. Because
well, I guess really it would be nice when we get back to some kind of normality, won't it? And be able to see people again. And I know it's been so difficult for everybody, you know. So I'm just looking forward to being back to seeing people and rather than virtual ones.
Well, it's so important to be able to look forward. I think for me, if I'm getting supported by anyone, I need somebody who's going to help me look forward. So put that on my list for the future.
Good idea.
And I know Alistair will expect me to say this.
Yes.
But all I'm going to say is, unfortunately, enough is enough, and I'm going to be out. I'm going to be out in a minute. But
very good. Yes, very good.
Yeah. You haven't been on enough of these. You haven't been on enough of these. So just to remind people that next week we have on Tuesday Talks, we've got Dr. Danielle Farrell next Tuesday.
Yes.
The first Tuesday of the month. And I don't know whether you want to say about next week's guests and the next couple of weeks, Alistair, before we go?
Yes. So we've got Mark Hinton and Chloe Taylor next week, who are a couple who are also part of lots of things that we do, but come along to our Feel Good Friday sessions, having a chat and stuff, and they'll talk a little bit about how they found it hard to get the support to connect and keep connected, keep the relationship going during lockdown, and some of the other stuff that they're involved with. The following week, we're going to have hoping to have John Dalrymple and Fran Brown talking about their New Ways Home report, which is due to be released at the same time as our New Roots Home, which we're going to be
that's good.
trying to avoid, trying to help move forward with this whole avoiding institutionalization stuff within Scotland. So that's another exciting bit of work that we're involved with.
Yeah, and we did forget to say when we mentioned the National Voice that actually we were doing a workshop on New Roots Home at the National Voice, which is the following Wednesday, isn't it? The 17th of March. Yeah,
we are, and that's the link for the independent review of social care that we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
blimey.
So we did put one up there, didn't we? Saying a big thank you to Sam for joining us today. Yeah, we did. And sharing. Okay, there we are. So there we are. That's good.
It's nice to be up north again.
Yeah.
Even virtually. Thanks for joining us. All right. See you again next time.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.